because the recording, I know the recording is being done, so definitely they must be having that YouTube thing. They can share it with you. But I have practically no idea about it. So I'm just to teach you. That's all. Okay. So now we can start.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So today, actually, what I am teaching will be a very boring chapter, but I'll try my best to make it interesting. But it's not a very interesting because the whole age is little boring, I can say. Because when the age of reason comes, and it's more of prose and satire and all this, so at times it becomes very boring. So I'll be talking to you about the late Renaissance. Late Renaissance. So in the late Renaissance, it is signified by three movements. One was the classical learning, where they try to revive the classics, because already the printing press was, I already told you, it was invented. So they took advantage of that classical learning. And second was the Reformation. The Reformation, I had again told you that there was a lot of corruption in churches, and the papal supremacy was there in the church, and there was, I mean, a lot of politics entered into the churches. So this was the reason there were a lot of political turmoil, and interfaith conflicts were there. As a result, the Reformation took place. And when the Reformation took place, at the same time, everything was centered in England. So the center was now back to England. And
Ma'am,
England,
ma'am,
please, yes,
you're teaching which block?
I am teaching you. Let me see which block. I'm teaching you block
Block 4.
4 and 5 today.
Okay,
Block
ma'am.
4 and
Thank
5. Okay.
Thank
Yeah. So this is an introduction which I am giving you. So I told you that the Reformation, and while I'm talking, while I'm taking my class, please don't interrupt me. I'm getting disturbed. The ideas come to me, but I'm getting disturbed. So whatever you have to say, you just raise your hand, give me some time, and allow you. You can just switch on and talk to me. But while I'm in the midst of I'm in a lecture or talking to you, please don't disturb me. I'm getting disrupted. So I'm talking about the Reformation which took place, and this Reformation was the upheaval, I told you, that took place, and because of the corruption in the churches and the conflict and the political turmoil. So as a result of the Reformation, there was everything now came to England, because earlier there was a lot of conflict between the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church, between the European country and like France, Rome, where the church was centered, and England. And England was a place for Protestantism, because they didn't believe in this the supremacy of the popes. So during this time, in this late Renaissance, there is a growth of England, in the sense as an economic power, and there was a lot of expansion of intellectual discourses, and also arts and culture flourished. So when a nation develops, grows, there will be growth from all sides. From the side of the economy, the society is getting restructured, lot of trade and commerce. So this is how the imperialistic tendency in England grew. England became an imperial power. Imperial means something which can control over others. That's called the imperial. Because we say that we were under the imperial rule of British. What is the imperial rule? Imperial rule means the Britishers tried to, we are we are in a way subjugated to the Britishers. So the Britishers tried to rule over us. That was the imperial power. And again, the Renaissance was the age of enlightenment. Enlightenment, why? because science, there's a lot of development in science and technology. There's a lot of pursuit of knowledge. They're thinkers. They were great. Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, they all came with the inventions. So naturally, there was an expansion of thought, intellectual discourses. So that is the reason they say that was the age of enlightenment. And during this time, what was the literary form which became very popular? The literary form which became popular was genre of essay, or you can say the prose, epigram, satire, masque. All these forms of literature, the genre of literature, they became popular, right? So in this late 17th century, you can say, or the late Renaissance, the the most powerful poet, the most powerful figure, you can say, was John Milton, which is prescribed in your course. John Milton. John Milton was a very scholarly person, very scholarly. And he was a voracious reader of the Bible, of the mythologies, of the classics. And his style was the grandiloquent style, very lofty, very powerful, very sublime. It's very difficult to understand Milton, and he was the one who wrote Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained. Can you believe that he when he wrote Paradise Lost, he was that time blind. He could not see anything. He was blind. But though he was blind, he could write that voluminous epical work that is Paradise Lost. That how God created man. Man was very happy in paradise, but the Satan was there. Satan wanted that there should be a fall of the mankind, let the mankind go to hell. So he, in the form of a serpent, was hiding in an apple tree. God had God has created the world in 7 days. They say God created the world in 7 days. So that is the day that Sunday is called. We relax on Sunday because 6 days God worked, created the heaven, and the seventh day, the Sunday, that was called the Sabbath day, where he took rest. So that is the rest day. That is the reason we also take rest, doing nothing for the other 6 days. We just take rest. But God created the world, and that is the reason the Sunday he relaxed, and he was very happy that he created mankind. Earlier, he created lakes, trees, birds, everything, but there's no human being. So he thought that such a beautiful world I have created, but who is there to enjoy? So let me create human beings. First, he created Adam, the first man of this world. Adam, 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 the first male person. So he was alone. He started loitering around the world. Then God observed that he must be getting bored without any companion. So he thought that I've already created mankind. So how will I create the other one? So what he did, he took a bone from the hip area of that man, hip area of the man, and from that bone, he created another form that is called the woman. So that is the reason, if you spell it properly, it is woman or we owe men. We owe the men. OWE. We owe men. That means first man came, second the woman came out of the rib bone of the man. So that is the reason we say that female is the weaker sex. Weaker sex means he's born from some part of the body of the male, from the bone. That is how it was created. But when man and man created, God said that you can enjoy everything in this world, but He warned them, don't eat the apple of the tree. There was a tree full of very inviting red apples hanging from the tree, but He warned them, please don't eat the apple of the tree. That time they're all naked. Adam and Eve, they didn't have any clothes on them. They are all naked. But they have no idea that they are naked or there is some attraction between them. Nothing like that. They're just forms like beings, like other animals. They are just loitering around. But we say women are more greedy than the men. It is general saying that when the woman is there, she wants everything. But the man doesn't need, they don't. Yeah. It has come. Right. Okay. Okay. They have given. Yeah. Yeah. I'm here. I'm already here. So where is it? Yeah. Okay. Stop presenting. Why is it written that? Okay. But how do I go to the next one? Can you see the slides?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay, just a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ पर स्लाइड मुवमेंट केमती करेबी ताले तो बड़ा असुविधा हो ताले आपण ସେଇଠି ରଖନ୍ତୁ ସେଇଠି ରଖନ୍ତୁ ଆପଣ ଥାଆନ୍ତୁ ମୁଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ କହିବି ନାଲେ ହଁ ନେକ୍ସଟ କହିବି ମୁଁ କରିଦେବି so I'll not able to change that is the main problem now because he is now uploaded that from his office I've told so I'll not be able to change that will be my problem let's see don't worry at least you'll get the material that is more important so I was talking about Adam and Eve no so Adam and Eve they were loitering around and God warned them not to eat any apple of the tree why because God's enemy who is the Satan as in our culture we have Sunny who is thus the rival of God so there this is they in biblical literature also they have Saturn wanted to have the heaven to himself God wanted the heaven to himself so that is the reason Saturn was very angry and he wanted to take revenge on God so he was in the form of a serpent or a snake he was there in that apple tree but usually it is observed that women are greedier than the man. So when she saw those red Lucius apples hanging from the tree, she told Adam, why can't we eat one apple? Then Adam said, no, God has warned us not to eat, so we should not eat. But she went on insisting that we can at least have one. So Adam plucked that apple, and as he plucked that apple, he ate that apple. The first thing that came to them was the consciousness of the sex that he's a male, he's a female. So that consciousness came to them, and they realized that their bodies are different and they have a sense of attractions towards each other. So we say that we have 7 deadly sins, 7 types of sins man commits. jealousy, greed, envy, revenge, all this. So all the deadly sins, 7 deadly sins, immediately, by and by, entered into the consciousness of Adam and Eve. So when Adam and Eve became conscious, so they were in paradise. So there, then Satan, tried to occupy that paradise. So the paradise which they had got, the paradise, there was a loss, they started losing that paradise. And today, till today, we are not in that paradise which God had created early for mankind. So this is the story behind it. I should not go to that story. So I told you that essay became very popular, verse, satire, epigram, also it became very popular. In the form of essay, in the form of pamphlets, it also became popular. There was a famous prose writer of the age. I don't know whether you have read it or not. He was Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon. He was a famous prose writer. And his prose is, one sentence of Bacon is like an elastic. As you go on expanding the elastic expands. Similarly, the lines are so condensed, so tight, and so short. Epigrammatic, that is called, very, very nicely written, not elaborate, nothing. But you can write a whole paragraph on a particular sentence. It is, it has so much of meaning. I just give you an example. Bacon writes, wife, you can say wife. Wives are young men's mistresses and old men's nurses. You see the expression? Wives are young men's mistresses, because when a wife is young, she's like the mistress to that man. She is beautiful, she gives him comfort. The beauty, she has a beauty with her, she has a softness in her, so she's like a mistress. But and she becomes like a nurse when the person is old. So wives are young men's mistresses and old men's nurses. So how true, and how realistic the expression of that essayist is. So I'll be talking today about John Milton. Uh, Mr. Parida, if you are hearing, can you come to the third slide, John Milton? I don't know, he's not there, I believe. Okay, so John Milton, I told you, he was a very scholarly person. He had read the Bible, he had read all the mythologies, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, and he had read the Bible. And he was very difficult writer, and so very, so very, what can say, very powerful. He writes the language, he is called the grandiloquent language, very rich, very, very rich language. So one sentence of Milton also, it's very difficult to understand. So Milton's poems, you have some Milton's poems. Let me tell him so that you can just see those poems. Just a minute, allow me.
Hello.
Mr. Parida. Hello. Just a minute. Oh.
Hello.
Hello. ঠিক আছে, সে জন মিল্টন ଯୋଉଠି ହେଇଛି ସେଟା ଗୋଟେ ସେ ଜନ୍ ମିଲ୍ଟନ ଯୋଉଠି ଲେଖା ହେଇଛି, ତାପର ସ୍ଲାଇଡ
Hello, छोटी बच्ची हो क्या?
Okay. So now you see the Milton's poems. You just, because you are not familiar with the names, so that is the reason I have given. These are the poems of Milton. On the morning of Christ's nativity, Lycidius, El Allegro, Il Penseroso, and sonnets. These are the Milton's poems. And let me go one by one. So, on the morning of Christ's nativity, it is more on about the Christian lore, and I've already given the explanation that the four stanzas of the poem, they introduce the poet's topic. It is about the birth of Christ, the birth of Christ. When the Christ was born, everyone was very happy in the Western world. And there is a lot of celebration. So he refers to the birth of Christ and the celebration related to the event of the birth. And the sweep of the sweep of the poem is about the creation. He is about the creation. I told you how the world was created. And it leads to the civilizations. After the creation, there are a lot of civilizations of the past. And finally, in Christianity, they believe that there is a day of judgment. When you die, you have to go to heaven. God will be there like a judge. He will try to weigh how much of sin you have committed, how much of virtuous things you have committed in life, and accordingly, he will give you the punishment. Even in our religion also, we say that narco and surga, when you go to hell, patal, you go to hell. And Islamic religion, they also have that there is a day of judgment where God will decide, God will give the judgment, what will be the rate of punishment for you for the deeds you have committed on the earth. So there is the invocation of the heavenly muse, and the Christ is here celebrated as a hero. Hero because he's the one who can defeat Satan. I've already told you about the Satan so that you are familiar with it. So the theme of the old classical gods, how it has been displaced, and how Christ, the role of Christ has become, important. The classical gods, they believed in the pagan worship. They believed in paganism. They believed in worshipping a tree. They believed in worshipping a rock. They believe in worshipping the river. So these were the pagan worship. But when Christianity came, for the first time, Christ as a physical person, he was worshipped. So the old gods, the classical gods, Apollo, Phoebus, fire god, that god, this god, there's so many gods in Greek mythology, you'll find. So all these gods were replaced, and Christ, like a hero, was worshipped. So the introductory stanzas are composed of 7 lines each. And there is a rhyme scheme because Milton was very particular about the rhyme scheme. He felt meter is very important. So he did not believe in blank verse. So A, B, B, C, C, that is the rhyme scheme he has got. And the remaining stanzas, as you find, are of 8 lines each, 8 lines, with the rhyme scheme again of A, B, C, C, B, D, D. And at the end of it, you have a couplet. Couplet, I told you, when 2 lines, they match or the rhyme together, that's called a couplet. So this was the first poem he wrote. And the second poem was Lycidas. Lycidas is like a lament poem. Lament, when someone dies. When someone dies, then the person laments the death of that person. Let it be there with Lycidas. Mr. Parida, don't disturb, please. Let it be there. So Lycidas, it commemorates the death. He had a friend, Edward King. So after Edward King died, he died in a shipwreck. He was drowned. So remembering him, he writes this lament poem, which has another name in English that is called the elegy. Elegy, elegy. So the poem describes the heavenly bliss that is Lycidas's fortune after death. When a person is dying or he's dead, after that he goes to heaven. And heaven, we always have a belief that heaven is a paradise. Heaven is something where everyone enjoys, where everything is very happy. There's no sorrow, there's no suffering. So he talks about that heavenly bliss which his friend will enjoy when he goes to heaven. So it is a lyrical lament for one particular trend, but the poem has several voices. because he is a voice, and at the same time he refers to the shepherd, the uncouth swine, that is the shepherd. He refers to the Apollo god, that is Phoebus. He refers to the Cambridge University Camus, St. Peter's, it's a church. So all these, through them, he also starts lamenting how all of them will miss his friend Edward King. I told you that this is a pastoral elegy. Pastoral elegy is some elegy, which is a lament poem written in bereavement or written for someone who has died, and it is in the form of a story. It is a form of a story where it describes the Shepherd boys. The Shepherd boys, they tell the story, and various person characters will come and interact with the Shepherd boys, and that is how the story, the narration takes place. So that is a form which was developed during the Miltonic age, and that was the pastoral elegy. Not that urban sort of thing, but everything is very innocent. Everything is in a rural setting where the shepherds would be roaming around, and the two shepherd boys will be there, and they will be telling you the story. So there's a lot of allusions. I told you allusions means references to Christianity, to Bible, because I had told you that Milton was a very scholarly person, very erudite scholar, and it is very difficult at times to understand even a single line of Milton. Then, after Lycidas, he wrote two poems. One was El Allegro, and the other one was Il Pensiero. So these are the two poems, the twin poems he took. In El Allegro, he addresses to melancholy. Melancholy, melancholy, what's the meaning of melancholy? Can anyone tell me?
Sadness.
Sadness. But when we say I'm sad, I can say I'm sad, it doesn't have any effect. What when I say I am melancholic, that has a very
Means,
that has got a very
ma'am, melancholy when someone is sad, but have some happy moments, souvenirs. So it's a mixed feeling.
no, melancholy is something where one is very sad and he's in a state of remembrance. He remembers, he feels nostalgic, he feels, all complex feelings are there. Sad is something very simple. I'm sad. You may be sad for not getting an ice cream. You may be sad because you have not gone to see a movie hall. You may be sad because you had a quarrel with your friend. It's a very simple term. But when I say I am suffering from melancholy, it is, it's a very complex feelings you have, where perhaps you're missing someone, perhaps you're feeling very depressed, perhaps those days you are about nostalgic about maybe your childhood or maybe your love or whatever it is you want to remember, but they are not coming back to you. So it's a very romantic word used in literature, that is called melancholy. Usually people say, oh, I'm sad. You don't say, oh, I'm melancholic. Have you ever heard someone saying I'm melancholic? No, you don't hear. This is a word used in literature that is called melancholy, and it has got a very very romantic, you can say, an effect when you say he's melancholic. And the opposite of melancholy is happiness, or that is called mirth. mirth. Again, again the literature, the word in literature for happiness is called mirth, or a feeling of merriment, or a feeling of being ecstatic, that is called mirth. So this poem is addressed to melancholy in the first 10 lines. But onwards, after the 10 lines, suddenly, this poet, he has a revulsion or anger towards a melancholy. And he wants to appreciate mirth, because melancholy doesn't carry him anywhere. So he once spends one day in the countryside. He enjoys the beauty, the pastoral world, the rural landscape, and how the clouds collide, how the clouds are resting on the bosom of the mountains. It gives him a sense of sensuality also. So he's happy seeing all that. So in the initial part of it, he addresses melancholy, he invites melancholy. But after 10 lines, he doesn't, it seems that it doesn't carry him anywhere, and he starts invoking the mirth. So after the rural scenes he describes, he again comes back to the city and talks about the pleasures a city gives to you. What are the city pleasures? The joys in the night, the nightclubs, the mass, the music, all this, So these are the beauty of a city life. So he talks about the pastoral beauty, the innocence, the you can say the freshness of the rural landscape. And at the same time, he comes to the urban world, to the city world, and he talks about the pleasures and joys. So he has discarded melancholy. So he addresses melancholy, but he doesn't stay with melancholy. He invites mirth. So the Il Penseroso, the next poem, the two poem, that next poem he writes, is just the opposite. It's just the reverse. What he does, he starts criticizing mirth. Here he addresses melancholy and then invites mirth. But in the next poem, Il Penseroso, he begins with a derision or criticizing the mirth or happiness, and switches again to invoking the melancholy. So he talks about the pleasures of solitude. Melancholy, in melancholy, the solitude, that word is very important. Solitude means to remain alone. When the self is alone, when nobody is there at your home, everything is very quiet. You are in your home, in your room. There's no music, there's no phone call, nothing. Who is doing all this? Please switch off or you leave this class. Don't do all this. I'm wasting my time on you then. If anyone is not interested, you can please joyfully leave my class. I'd be very happy. You don't have to express your boredom, or you say because this, I told you in the very beginning that it's a very boring chapter I'm going to teach you. It's not very interesting. I'm trying to make it interesting. So you have to cooperate, or else you please leave. You're free to leave because no one is watching you. But don't disturb others. I don't like this sort of looseness in the class, or just casual nature of the students, because I am trying my best. I have labored hard to make you teach. So respect that at least. So Il Penseroso, I told you that it is just the opposite of mirth. He starts, he says he starts with it is actually disturbing me, all this, I don't like all this. Begins with a derision of mirth, you can say, and following the same metrical pattern, he switches to invocation of melancholy. In the earlier poem, he started with melancholy, came to mirth. In the next poem, he starts with criticizing mirth and comes to melancholy. Melancholy, because I already told you, solitude is a very important aspect of melancholy, where one is alone, where the self is alone, when you self reflect, and you can think about multiple things without any disturbance. So that solitude gives you the peace of mind. And this melancholy is as holy, as pure as the nun, as a person nun who is in the church, he says. So the pleasures of melancholy is not only to the body, but also to the soul. We said we do pranayama, and do the pranayam. If you meditate for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, it gives you that calmness to your mind. So when the mind is calm, your soul is also benefited. There is a lot of relief to your soul also, because body and mind, they are all related, and the soul is a part of our body. So this, you can say, in your examination, there might be a comparative study of El Allegro and Il Penseroso. That always comes. So you can compare that how the opposites, in one there is melancholy, in another one there is mirth, how the opposites have been compared in both these poems, and they are like day and night. They are like day and night, mirth and melancholy, between sensuality and spirituality, between body and soul. So, these are the contrasts. And he appreciates, in one poem, he appreciates the one, and the other poem, he appreciates the other. So, El Allegro, when he says he enjoys the joys of life, that is, it represents a very Dionysian pleasure. Dionysus was a god, Greek god. And when you say that it is Dionysian, that means it is more of dancing, taking wine and jumping, enjoying to the greatest height. So it is a sort of pleasure. While Il Penseroso, it about the ascetic part of the saintly part of life, ascetic part. So one is a very positive thing. So the melancholy is appreciated, not in a negative way, but melancholy here is appreciated with its own spiritual aspect and with a very positive aspect. And in both the poems, you have an introduction and again appreciating, say, melancholy or appreciating mirth. But after the 10th line is over, again he comes back to the opposite emotion in the counterpart of the poem. So one deals with the external one. This, when you call a happiness, it is mostly with the external world. When you say it is melancholy, where it is solitude, it is associated with the inner world. So both the worlds, inner world as well as the outer world, they are talked. They are, in a way, in both these poems, they have been beautifully elaborated by the poet. Also, Milton wrote sonnets, especially sonnet number 19 and 23. Sonnet number 19 and 23, where he writes again in the same iambic pentameter and same octave sestet pattern of 8 lines and 6 lines. And in these sonnets, it deals with Milton's blindness. And these are very difficult, complex poems because he talks of the light and dark. He talks of visibility, invisibility. And he talks of how these contrasts are beautifully associated in our life. In our life, we are also having a life of contrast. We get up in the morning, then face the night. We get up in the morning happy. In the evening, at times we are sorrowful. We get up in the mind, get up having a very, very sort of tension, and you can say total, bodies, and there's some sort of mental struggle going on. But maybe during the end of the day, there's a total calmness coming to you. So again, in human life also, we are also in a world of contrast. It's not the same emotion you have in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon. So there's shades of emotions, and we have to go through all these shades. So which Milton explains in his poems. So are you clear? Are you clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Next we
Ma'am,
can
can
go.
you please change the slide?
Yes? Anyone who has raised the hands? Francis Gurung, Kamla, and 3. What do you have to say? Please, Francis Gurung. Are you from Nepal? Gurung, is you from Nepal? Francis Gurung, are you from Nepal? You have raised your hand.
I'm from Sikkim.
You are from Nepal?
I'm from Sikkim.
Which city?
Sikkim.
Okay, Sikkim. Okay. So you have understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, these are very difficult. Milton, I already told you, he's a very difficult poet. You should be thankful you don't have paradise lost and paradise regained. These are the two poems we had in our MA post graduation. We had, and the very long poems, lot of references to mythologies. If you don't understand a particular character of mythology, you will not understand the poem also. It is so difficult. So next we can go to the Restoration Age.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Restoration, it is from after Milton, we comes to the Restoration Age. I'm continuing because these are all.
Ma'am,
Yes.
can I ask one question, please?
Please ask.
Ma'am, you told that comparison one question can come, that is that comparison between that line
Il
connected.
Penseroso, and yeah, Allegro.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
That might come as a short question, or it might also come as a long question, because it's the two poems, and the two poems are the same way written, but they're changing the how it has been changed. He first invites melancholy, comes to mirth, and here it invites mirth and it comes to melancholy. Just the opposite, how it has been done, and both have their own
Ma'am,
importance.
excuse me, ma'am. I had a question day before yesterday because I was on the way. So can I put in the end or can I put now that
No,
question?
now how can you put it? Because I've already crossed that and I've come to earlier. So now I cannot go back. Because if you go on
Okay.
explaining, it is related to what?
Assignment only. I need to ask that because I joined in September and I was given the assignment to be submitted in March. So they have 10 questions and I don't know from where topic. So it is not possible for me to cover all those questions till coming March. So can I submit assignment after that, like after
No. These
a month
questions you
or?
have to already have told you that I'm not supposed to answer all this, because I am only supposed to take your class. So when to submit the assignment, that the office, those who are conducting the sessions for us, they will tell you that logistics thing. They will explain you when and how to submit, how you can answer this question, whether the course has been covered or not covered, all this. Because I'm not supposed to answer, even if I know the answer also, I cannot answer all this, even if I know it, because I've been in IGNU for such a long time. But I'm not supposed to, because I've already superannuated, retired, so I'm not supposed to give any comments on that. So please, you can mail your regional center from where you have been registered your name. They will explain how and what to do. Or
Okay.
maybe on the website also, you can go to the assignment section, and there must be some the rules and all, everything must be there. You please go to the website first. You please check the website. Go to the student section,
Okay.
and from the student section you'll come to the assignment, and there you will get everything, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So next
Sorry, ma'am. After student section,
yeah,
after student section, का बाद में next one.
we are coming to the Restoration Age,
Okay.
and this is from 1660 to 1700. The Restoration Age, that is an age I'm talking about, the Restoration Age. And then I will come to the writers or the other playwrights or other, the literature of that. But let me talk about the background first. If you don't understand the background, you'll not be able to understand the poet or the critic or the dramatist, right? So the Restoration Age, you had heard about Renaissance, you came to know about Reformation, then it is Restoration. After Reformation, it is Restoration. What is restoration? The meaning of restoration means when everything is in order, coming to in order. So it refers to the restoration of the Stuart monarchy in England in 1660. It also marked the return of the theatre after 18-year ban, and it refers to the return of Charles II and the re-establishment of monarchy again in England. Charles the First was beheaded. He was beheaded, and that time all the forms of art, theater, drama, and other forms of art received a death blow. Everything was very chaotic. A lot of conflicts took place. And Charles the First was beheaded. And Charles the Second, who was to come as the king, he was sent to exile. He was there and he was shut out. I mean, he was shunned from England. So he was in exile in some place. So he returned to his own country. So things started becoming normal. So lot of development also took place in politics, religion, social life, literature, science. But Charles II, you find he was a person who just wanted to enjoy everything in life. He abandoned many of the traditions, the political tradition, the rules, the religious traditions, and he placed more value on the form, on the style, how to present all this. And in the meantime, I've already told you that science had developed, reasoning was also there. So human reasoning was there. So in this particular age, restoration age, when everything had been banned, all the forms of art were banned, again there was a re-emergence of art and literature. And how did they do it? They again started going back to the classics. And they said that it is neoclassicism. Neoclassicism, where they started writing epics, lyrics, plays, and all these. They discussed what was the topic of such thing? It was only discussed about politics, about human life, about religious faith, about science, about modernism. So there was nothing about nature, about Shepherd, or about Spencer enjoying the sensuous beauty of the beloved. No, nothing like that. It was more as the society was restored and it was restructured. So they started talking about the plays, poetry. Again, they came back, and the classical thing was they went back to the classics, and they say it is neoclassicism. It's a new type of classicism, and they started writing more on prose writings about society. And by that time, as the ruler Charles II was a very person who was more into pleasure seeking person. He was not a very tough ruler. So naturally, when the head of the state is like that, naturally the state, everything is false in the state. It is said that mm, if the center cannot hold, things fall apart. If the center cannot hold, things fall apart. Similarly, when the center is not a little loose, naturally things get disturbed. So the theaters, they opened after a long time, and the principal writers, you can say, they were the prose writers or the playwright, the theater persons, the playwrights. They were Congreve, Wycherley, and the tone of the plays were very witty, very cynical, and they started satirizing, commenting on society. So the literary trend of Restoration Age, if you say, that lot of French influence was there. You know why? Because Charles II, when he was in exile, he was in France. So when he came back to England and became the king of England, he was so much influenced by French culture, French literature. So he wanted to bring that French influence to England. So lot of French influence is there, and the plays became very important, the plays and prose, because it was an age of reason. People started questioning. They just did not believe whatever was given to them. They started questioning. So when you start questioning, then there is a reasoning in you. When you start questioning, that means you also start criticizing, oh, this is good, this is bad. So there was no lyric. The lyric came to an end. Lyric means the love poems with the emotion, with the passion. No, all this stopped. And there was the emergence of satire. And one thing happened in this restoration age was, for the first time, the female dramatists. Till that time, there's no female character coming to the stage. But in this time, the female dramatists and the female characters also came into existence. So this age is famous because of two great literatures. One is John Dryden, another one is Alexander Pope. John Dryden. John Dryden. John Dryden. John Dryden. So that was his age. He was a very famous critic, poet, dramatist, translator, everything. He was John Dryden. So John Dryden, he was a very influential person, and it is also called the Age of Dryden. The Age of Dryden. Walter Scott, another famous poet, he calls him Glorious John. He was made the poet laureate also in 1668, and his critical works exhibit his immense tolerance and sense of that Catholicism, because he was not a very Protestant, he was a Catholic. There's another critic, he says that he established the English fashion of criticizing as Shakespeare had the English fashion of dramatizing. Shakespeare was great because he was a great dramatist. He dramatized. And this person is great because he started criticizing. Johnson called John Dryden the father of English criticism. The father of English criticism. So that is John Dryden. So he says, according to John Dryden, literature should be mirror of the society. It should not be something which is only romantic, which is something fanciful. No, it should be a mirror of the society. And he said that every age or nation has its own style, has its own temper. And accordingly, the literature is also shaped. It is not that only Shakespeare is great. It is not that only Ben Jonson is great. Shakespeare may be great due to his age. But the age has changed. The times have changed. Now, if you go to see a Shakespearean drama, do you think people will enjoy? Give me an answer, yes or no?
No, ma'am.
No. Why?
Yes, ma'am.
Because there are lot of songs, and finally, there is a love which continues for a long time. Lot of wooing happening. So people will say, "Oh, this is all bogus." So what will happen? Finally, attack. A picture where there's an attack, or a picture where there's a murder, and there's some investigation going on, and the police is coming. Because you are seeing that in your real life. You are not seeing a shepherd. You are not seeing a pastoral world where everything is very innocent. You'll find girls getting raped. What is happening in Gaza? What is happening in Hamas? What these people are doing to the Israelis? So, do you think that in this age, in this situation, you can think of something very romantic? No. One has to be, your age, your time has an impact on you. You start questioning. For example, when I was taking my class, I remember when I was taking the class of an honors class in BA, I was idolizing Lord Rama. Today is very important because this is also the Lord Rama will be installed. Okay, I was idolizing Lord Rama, that how ideal Lord Rama was. And he listened to his father Dasrath and went to the forest for 14 years. He never said no to the father. Then, one boy, one student in my class, he raised his hand. He said, Madam, I beg to differ. I want to give my views. I said, Please give. He said, Madam, you see, Rama was an adult. First of all, Dasrath committed his crime by saying something to his wife where there was no witness. And he loved that wife more than the other two wives, which is wrong. Third thing, he said something to the Kaikai, to his wife, when no one was there. And that lady took advantage of whatever he had promised. But Rama was an adult person. Rama was not a child. So if the father has become old, and if the father says something which is not actually logical, should a son listen to the father and become an ideal son? Or the son should question the father, saying that you are wrong? He said, Madam, if I would have been Rama, I would have gone to the court and pursued a case against my father. Can you imagine? A boy of this century can talk like this. I said, yes, you are 100% right. You are 100% right, because your age is there reflected in your thinking. That was the age of idealism, where, whatever the father says, right or wrong, bad or good, the son always nodded his head, bowed down, and agreed to the father. But can you do that today? Even if father says something, don't you question your father, saying, no, I don't agree with you. I don't think it is right, Papa, or I don't think it's right, Father. Or do you say, oh, Father, whatever you have said, 100% I am listening to you or carrying you? Do you agree? Do you agree with your father always?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No, yes, because you are right. You are an individual. You are having your own thinking. You are having your own reasoning. It is always better to place your own views before your parents or your father or your mother, and watch what is their reaction, how much they are convinced by whatever you say. But definitely, you have your own thinking. It's not that you become blind to everything and say, oh, yes, marry at the age of 12, yes. Do this, yes. No, that age is gone. That age is gone, because they had no independence during that time, and everything was very different. Everything was very different. Okay, so I come back to my so I was talking about John Dryden. So he says that literature is a mirror of the society, and he said that Shakespeare may be great during his age, but it doesn't mean that Shakespeare is right in all ages. He said that. So according to the age, you have your thinking, and according to the age, you write also. For him, according to Dryden, what the main purpose of the poet is to delight, is to make the readers happy. Instruction is not important. You should not be instructing someone with a moral that this is good, this is bad. You just say something which the others will like. So he says that a poet is like a creator who can select, who can change, who can refashion life, like a goldsmith. Goldsmith, how he makes gold. It goes on beating and giving shape to that gold. Similarly, the creator or the poet, he's the one who can create. And the creation has how it is impacted due to the time. I create something in this modern age, not the 14th century thing you will like if I do it here. Or if I wear something of the 14th century as they were wearing, no one will like you, because nowadays the attire or the dress has changed. So according to the shape, according to the time, according to the age, one has to create, one has to make those adjustments. So he says, in this age of restoration, instruction is not important. The instruction is not important. What is important is giving delight, giving happiness to the readers. So he broke away from, he was a very liberal critic. He was a very liberal critic, and he was not at all conservative, So he gave a free flow to his ideas. Again, here I will say one thing, that in this age, what became important? There's a short question that might come. Heroic couplet. Heroic couplet. So that is the term used in Restoration Age, and it was used by John Dryden. So what is this heroic couplet? Heroic couplet is a combination of the heroic line. So what is the heroic line again? It is the 10 syllabic iambic line. I told you iambic means, in the iambic, one unstressed, the other one is stress. So when there is 10 syllabic, 10 syllabic iambic line followed by a couplet, that is called the heroic couplet. A line can be divided into 10 feet. One unstressed, one stressed, one unstressed, one stressed. So that goes a long line. So in this measure, we have 2 rhyming lines, each an iambic pentameter. So there are 2 lines with iambic pentameter, means 5 feet. And it involves a pause at the end of the first line, and the sense is completed at the end of the couplet. So this was the structure of the heroic line. You can remember that it is a 10 meter. The first line is 5 meters, the second line is 5 feet, 2 feet, 10 feet, followed by a couplet. So it is and with the couplet, the entire argument is complete. So heroic couplet was introduced by Chaucer in England and also used by the Elizabethans. But it was Waller and Denham who brought the form to dignity, and Dryden and Alexander Pope perfected that form. That is the heroic couplet. Yes, Himani? What happened? So in Dryden's hands, it achieved the perfection and the brilliance. He practiced closed couplet, the 2 lines at the end of the poem, where the entire sense, what the entire logic of whatever he has expressed is completed. So this form is called the epigrammatic form. Epigram means something like, for example, you are drinking milk, 2 liters of milk. But if the 2 liters of milk, you are putting it into a small can, it is called condensed milk. So if you pour water, it becomes 2 liters. You got it? So when the entire elaborate idea is condensed in a very tight way, compressed, made compact, so that is called the epigrammatic style. A small line or maybe 2-3 words, if you expand it, it can run into pages. That is called the epigrammatic style. So Dryden was very good at it, and he used this heroic couplet. Next, we can come to his famous poem, which you have in your course, and that name of that poem is MEG-1. Just wait, just a minute. I have to tell you the dictate you the spelling also. Yes, I told you that John Dryden he was a poet, he was a critic, he was a dramatist, he was an essayist. He had, you could write on any subject. So that is the reason he was called the Age of Dryden. He was such a great grandmaster, you can say. So he presented something very realistically about a society. And when you are real, then you have to be a little satirical. You cannot say someone who is very ugly, oh, you're so beautiful. If you say ugly, you are little ugly, then you are not satirizing, but you are telling the truth. But people say that you have satirized, you have criticized. So when it is realism, when you talk about the real world, then definitely there will be an element of satire in it. It is not only praising someone, you have to satire. So he as a dramatist, if you take John Dryden as a dramatist, he presented a mixed comedy, which was not total wit, nor it was total humor, but it was a mixture of both. So at times he was humorous, and at times he was witty, and also at times he was satirical. But he did not want to, like criticize just for criticizing. He was presenting the world. So when he presents the world, at times he became very ironical, at times he became very satirical, but his own purpose was to entertain the audience. So he had a number of plays. That they're minor plays. These things are not going to come in examination, but you just hear the names: The Wild Gallant, The Mock Astrologer, Marriage a la Mode, Love in a Nunnery. So these were some of the dramas he had written. So he also wrote tragic comedies, and again number of them he wrote: The Rival Ladies, Secret Love, Love Triumphant, Spanish Friar. These are all the tragic comedies. Then next he writes about the heroic drama. So what is this heroic drama? When all the emotions are there, romance is there, melodrama is there, passion is there, opera is there, everything is mixed, then it becomes heroic drama. So in Shakespearean drama, you find lot of emotion. There's a structuring, it was more on human relationship. But you didn't have anything, just for the purpose. Of course, there were some clownish characters, but it was just to, lighten the seriousness of the play. It was given because the plays were serious. But here, it was just an amalgam or a mixture of different emotions: passion, melodrama, romance, opera. So, and different themes. One was the theme of love, one was the theme of honor, one was the theme of virtue, and lot of action. So, this is how he wrote the heroic drama. So, the heroic drama also had names. The Indian Emperor. He wrote about the Indian Emperor, and he wrote about tyrannic love, the conquest of Granada, part 1 and part 2. And he wrote also Aurangzeb. He wrote a drama on Aurangzeb also. So here there is a serious as well as a comic temper. Not everything is serious, but also there was a comic temper to the plays. But you don't find the love element in his plays, which was very much prominent in the earlier plays. Love, pure passion, sensuousness. No, it was not there. So you'll find rhetoric was, in a way, he wrote in this couplet, meter was very important. So there's a lot of rhetoric. And he talked about the high society of England and the good manners, the civilities, all this. He wrote about the entire society in a very serious, in a serio-comic tone. Neither it was very serious, neither it was very comical. It is called serio-comic tone. So this is his role as a dramatist. As a critic, he was also a critic. So he was a man who had all the ability, all the talent, you can say. So he was a critic where he wrote a famous critical discourse which is named essay of dramatic poesy. Essay of dramatic poesy. That was the criticism he wrote. And he writes in the form of debate. You debate. He writes in the form of debates, and he gives 4 debates in his essay. And in this dramatic poesy, he appreciates the English plays. English plays, admires the gallantry of the people, the civility of the characters, and the conversation. And he also reflects the refinement of the upper class. So he was a critic. Essay of dramatic poesy. That was the criticism he wrote. At the same time, you find that he had done many translations. He had done many translations from different, like French, from Latin, Ovid, Virgil, Homer, Boccaccio, Chaucer. He made all the translations and adapted this translation according to the age. I mean, he made the translations, not the literal translations, but he made a parallel. He made a translation, made a parallel, made a comparison of his age to that age. So he was very careful when he makes a choice of the words, because he always wants to have a mock heroic impact, not a heroic, but a mock heroic. He talks of heroism not in the real sense of a hero, because hero has to have the qualities of, what you can say, of sacrifice, of bravery, of love. But in the 18th century, or in the Restoration age, the hero, they did not have the real heroic qualities, but they were the mock heroic. They were the pseudo heroes, you can say, having the look of a hero, but also having other qualities unheroic like. That is called mock heroic. And the famous poem which you wrote, which you have in your book, of course it comes as a long thing, and also it comes as a short question also. That poem is MEG-1. Please write the name MEG-1 MEG-1. This is MEG-1, and this is the famous poem which he wrote. And in this poem, you find that it is again a satire. It is again a satire where you can say the first literary satire, you can say, or you can say mock heroic poem. And the target, who was the target of the satire? Because you have to have a target for the satire. The target was his own friend, Shadwell, 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 who was also his contemporary, who was also a great writer. And they were together writing critical discourses. But both envied each other. Both envied each other. There was a professional rivalry between the two. Dryden thought that Shadwell had no true understanding of wit. He doesn't understand what the meaning of wit. Or he doesn't have the merit of Ben Jonson also. But he just imitates. He just imitates the great scholars. So it is on his personal rivalry which he transforms into a literary criticism. It was his personal rivalry with his friend, and that is how he wrote MEG-1. So MEG-1 is a foreign word. It's a Gaelic word, Gaelic, Gaelic word, meaning son of Fleckno. Mac means son, son, S-O-N, son of Fleckno. And who was this Flecknoe? Flecknoe was an Irish, a priest from Ireland, Roman priest, who was satirized by the poet Andrew Marvell. So he says Shadwell is like the son of Flecknoe. That means he's another character who wants to become the priest but doesn't have a priest-like qualities. So Dryden found a connection between this bad poet, the poet, that Roman Catholic priest, about his poem, about his friend Shadwell and Flecknoe. He said the connection is very, very natural, very, very natural. So this name became a synonym for a person who's a hypocrite, who's doesn't have any originality. He's a dullard. So the choice of words he has done in this, made a choice of words. He has made a heroic poem about his friend, and it is a very rhetorical and long poem using images, and he refers to the classics, and his choice of words are very, very careful. But the aim of the poem is to criticize, is to tell about his friend who he thought has no originality. He was just an imitator of the great writers. So you find that Dryden's experience or his poetry has always a social relevance. It is not purely sensuous. It is not purely based on romance, imagination, and he didn't want to do something which is very didactic, or didn't want to instruct. He didn't want to have a moral. He talked about his friend in a natural way, and he placed his views very openly, in a direct way, to the world, because he was a liberal critic. So he had a sense of, that gut he has to present things as it was according to his viewpoint. So this was John Dryden. I think today this much I will do. Let me have some question answers with you, because the next poet we're going to go is Alexander Pope. He's again a very difficult poet. And John Dryden, The Age of Restoration, is also a little boring, and of course, and it doesn't have, what you can say. The Dryden, these are very difficult writers. Milton again is very difficult poet. So I have tried to be very brief, comprehensive, so that you have a fair understanding of the age or of the poet. Because when you talk about an age, talk about a poet, you cannot, pull him away from the age. Age always has an impact on the poet. If age is something very disturbing, then the poet writes something very complex. But if the age is a very simple age of romance, then accordingly you also write some similar things which appeal to the senses, right? So now you have right to question me. I'm giving you some 20 minutes, and then we can wind up. I think today I'm very tired. I think I cannot proceed further, or else also you cannot mentally digest whatever I have taught you.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
You talked about caesura, the pause. So, where does it fall in the iambic pentameter or the heroic couplet?
No, I didn't get you.
The pause, caesura, where does it fall?
Caesura.
Yeah, where does it fall in
No,
the?
as you read a line, it is not
Yes.
exactly I can place you. As
Okay.
you write a, for example, uh, say, for example, I'm, for example, I say, hey,
Okay.
listen what I'm saying. Hey, little
Yes.
pause, little pause. I
Okay.
don't say, hey, listen what I'm saying. I don't say like that. Hey, a pause, listen what I'm saying.
Right.
So as you pronounce, you
Yes,
have
ma'am.
to pronounce your words. For example, if it is in Hindi, hey, suno. So ये ये सुनो तो there is a pause. You don't say सुनो मैम कहना क्या चाहते हैं, or listen, listen, let me tell you a story. Listen, hark, something is coming. So there is a pause. So the pause is there to give a dramatic effect.
Is it necessary that it will definitely fall in the iambic pentameter poem?
No,
Okay.
it may fall, it may not fall. It depends. When you see the poem only, you can find out how it is. But
Okay.
you have to practice. More important, in poetry is to read the poem. If you read
Okay.
the poem as the poet has written, for example, say, I'm reading out the famous lines, you must all be knowing. Uh, the woods are lovely, dark, and deep.
Yes.
This is a very famous poem.
Yeah.
The woods are lovely, lovely, dark, and deep. So I'm putting emphasis on the word dark. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep. So dark and deep, both are emphasized.
Emphasized.
But, again I pause. But the woods are lovely, dark, and deep. But here I stop. I have promises to keep.
Okay.
I have promises to keep. And again you take a pause, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So as I read out, you can get the meaning of the poem.
Okay.
No,
Thank you, ma'am.
poem should be read in such a way that following the punctuation, so that you can get the meaning of that poem.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Please mute yourself, Ayush. Huh. Yes.
ma'am, I wanted to ask the question that you taught today, Lycidas, and there I got that line that Edward King, who got drowned in a shipwreck in 1637, and
Mhm.
it is a lament poem. Ma'am, what is the meaning of shipwreck and lament poem?
You don't know meaning of shipwreck. You saw the movie Titanic?
Yes, ma'am.
Then what happened in Titanic?
Ma'am, the
Did the
ship
ship go up?
destroyed.
Did the ship fly into the sky?
No, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Then
Ma'am, the
what
ship
happened?
destroyed in the water.
Not destroyed.
Shipwreck.
Not destroyed. There was a wreck.
Yes.
WRECK. Wreck.
Okay, ma'am.
Talk
Ma'am, what is
clearly.
the meaning of lament poem?
Lament. Lament means when you are, for example, your friend dies. Do you laugh there?
Crying.
No, ma'am.
Even you don't cry because you're not a child.
Yeah.
Then someone says, "Oh, Switi, why don't you say something about your friend?" Then how you start that? How you that my friend, she was so nice to me. I really feel the loss today. I don't see her anymore. Now you say something good about her. At the same time, you miss her. So
Yeah.
when you are lamenting, when you are expressing your grief, your sadness through a particular language, that is called lament. So that is called lament poems.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, I have one question.
Hmm.
Ma'am, so we talked about Renaissance and we talked about reformative times today. So, ma'am, the use of French language was quite prominent. तो
Mhm.
ये कौन से एज से आना स्टार्ट हुआ था ब्रिटिश राइटिंग्स में लिटरेचर में?
Listen, all the classical languages, English did not develop. English developed later on. Earlier, there were the classical languages, all these Latin languages, French language, all these European languages were more, prominent. Then after that, after when the Anglican Church was established, then England as a state, it had restructured. Then different borrowings are there. Even in English, you don't get pure English words. Like in Hindi, you have some Urdu words. In Hindi, you have some Persian words. In Hindi, you have some Sanskrit words. A language cannot be totally autonomous. It has to have a dependence. Similarly, language of English was developed, but earlier there were the classical languages, and then when this printing press was developed, it was got translated, Then English on its own language started, but still today we have certain words, foreign words, even in English, which are not English, which is not English. For we say, I don't know whether you know that word or not, bon voyage. Bon voyage,
Ma'am,
Bonvoyage, bon
yes, ma'am. It
voyage.
is French. French
So,
origin.
yeah, we say bon voyage. That means bye bye. You're bidding goodbye.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is the French word, and that is being used in English today also.
Like bon
So,
appetit as well.
yeah, so these words are there. So English as a language developed later on. So you, and especially in the Restoration age, as King Charles II had to spend his days in exile in France for a long time, and he was very much enamored by the French culture, because France is a place of, fashion. When you talk of fashion, when you talk of art, all this thing, it is always the French people, because they're very stylish people. So when it is some good manners, when it's some, courtesy shown, then, it is, we say that it is French, because they are very people of good taste. Till today we admire the French people, because they are, very, very, very civil, very polite, not like the Irish people, of the people of Ireland or Scotland. They're very, very direct, very ruffian type. They're very bold in telling. But French people, they talk in a very subdued and a very soft manner. So that is the reason we say it is a French culture. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I just want to know if we have to prepare Allegro and El Pensaro, it's like we have to combine both of them.
No, you don't have to combine. If a question is coming on El Allegro, you write in Allegro. If there is a comparison, Allegro and Il Penseroso, you can make a comparison. Because in the first poem, he talks of melancholy, and he goes to mirth, the enjoyment. And the second poem, he talks of mirth, and again he rejects mirth, and he says melancholy is more important in life. How the importance of melancholy, because it is that gives you solitude, that gives you the peace of mind, that gives a self reflection, that gives you a sense of, the soul contentment is there in solitude. So he's a very, Milton was a person who was a very scholarly person. He had read a lot. He was an avid reader. So a lot of classics he had read in his life. So he was very spiritual. He was not, he mostly talked very intellectual things. He was a mystic poet. Mysticism, it is, you have to know certain terms in literature. Then only you can write good English. You have to know. For example, I told you an elegy, a lament, solitude, melancholy, mirth. These are the words. If you say to your friend, if you say, or you tell your father, I'm feeling really mirthful, I think he'll not understand. I don't think he will understand. He'll say some word.
And
But when you say mirthful, especially when we are all students of literature, oh, are you suffering from melancholy? That was the style. Oh, are you today in a very Chaucerian style? You are talking like this. We used to address like that. So that gave that style to us. You have to develop that style of talking, of writing, and for that you have to understand certain words, certain terms. When you say, oh, he's very mock heroic, when he's not a real hero but he behaves like a hero, you say, oh, he's a mock hero. It's a mock hero. This particular term you can only get in literature, because literature is something that gives you the refinement of your language. And if you have a hold on your language, you can write well.
another question is there any important question for John Milton and for John Dryden?
John Dryden, it may come on Macflickno as a poem. You can write that on Macflickno, or you can generally it can come as a age of restoration and the age of Dryden. What the features of the age of Dryden, that also might come as a question. So you have to write about the features, what happened in restoration age. There's how all this criticism came and how it was a reflection of the society. Mock these heroic couplets were developed. Mock these mock epics and mock tragedies and mock comics were written. So all these you can write, because of the age. So you can write about the features of the age in that, in the Restoration age, how it was the French influence, how it was the age of reason and prose, who were the famous prose writers, who were the famous, even you can say Gulliver's Travels, Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travels. I don't know whether they've read that book or not. Gulliver's Travels, he wrote that book novel. Of course, it's not there in your course, but let me tell you, he wrote the Gulliver's Travels. In that part, in that particular novel, he has divided the novel into, I think, into three parts. Where in the first part, the person is only 6 inches in height. 6 inches in height. So a person, a big man, a normal man, due to the shipwreck, he comes to that island, and it is called, the word is called Lilliput. We also say a Lilliput, or a Lilliput. What is this Lilliput? Do you know the word Lilliput?
A
Yes,
tiny
ma'am.
Tiny,
creature.
tiny. But this word came from Swift, Jonathan Swift, because he has written the Gulliver's Trouble. Gulliver was that man who came to that shore because of the shipwreck, and when he came to the shore, he was sleeping. He was already tired, and he was sleeping. But when he opened his eyes, he found hundreds of 6 inches man on his chest running here and there. So he just took one of the men on his thumb, like a rakshas as he lifts, no? He just lifted that man, and he took it, and that man was very scared, and they were shooting arrows to Gulliver, but these arrows were like you can say very like, what you can say, even lesser impact of a safety pin. They gave thousands of arrows, shot thousands of arrows to Gulliver, and they brought a big, how they brought him to the city. You should read that, so interesting. The big man was brought to the city, and they had to build a big sort of, they put ladders, and they climbed the ladders, and they tied ropes to Gulliver, and then they put him on a big sort of ratha, or a chariot sort of thing, and he was paraded in the society, in that entire city, and people were surprised to see such a big man. So, because that was the land of the Lilliput. So, in that novel, again, there's a land of the, Yahoos, Yahoos, where the people were very, very tall, and you have to climb to get up to a bed. So, that is a very beautiful satire of the society, where there was a big fight between two groups of people. You know why? About how to break an egg. How to break an egg. So there was a big fight between two groups in a society, how to bid the egg, from the headwise or from the sidewise. So if you read such books, or at least see some movies, you must be having YouTubes, you go to that and see the Gulliver's Travels. At least see the picture. If you don't have the time to read, you will really enjoy how beautifully, and even in the Restoration age, he could think of, now we are talking alien, you're talking of UFO, you're thinking that some people from some another planet must have come. He looks like, that, with big ears, big eyes, bulging out. You have seen all these movie in the Hollywood, an alien movies, an alien creature coming to Earth. So same thing, he could also imagine in the Restoration age, the late 17th century, you could imagine of this, how a society can fight on a very small matter of how to break an egg. Like we are having a fight now about this. I should not comment about where the Ram was born, or how the temple should be built. All very silly things of life. But we're debating on that only. Similarly, in all societies, you have such reflections, and that is beautifully presented by the novelist. Novel has that freedom. The novelist has a freedom, and he can create characters, and through the characters, he can tell about the reality of the society around him. So, I think today we are done. And could you understand 50%, 60% of whatever I have said?
Yes,
Or
Yes,
how?
ma'am, very much.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You enjoy the lecture?
Yes, ma'am.
A lot, ma'am, a
Yes,
lot.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay,
Thank
so
you,
I
ma'am.
think we can wind up today. Okay, okay then. Bye.
Ma'am, I
Bye,
have just
ma'am.
one question. Ma'am, regarding the PPTs that you had shared today. Today I
I
had
have
taken the screenshot.
I
Yes,
have
ma'am.
given I have given it to the office. I think they will send you, upload you. On the rest of it, I could not do because I am doing so much in one day because I didn't get time to actually develop the PPT. So I have done it in a very hurried manner. In a very hurried manner, I've done. But you'll get some points. I know. You'll get some. Definitely, you'll
Okay.
get some.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Take care,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you.